I'm going to get started because y'all are here and I appreciate you showing up on time. Because what I want to talk about specifically is the three things that your Claude or ChatGPT needs now, like not tomorrow, not the next day, but now, in order to really have the speed and consistency and relevancy and keep all of that on point and on fleek for you, basically. And so I've been thinking a lot about this because so many things have been happening. And even since I started talking about and promoting this training, ChatGPT launched Work, which is the equivalent of Cowork. They launched Sites, which is the equivalent of Artifacts, and they also added skills in. So now all of those, awesome skills that maybe you either have because you use Claude or have heard people talking about that you haven't been able to use because you use ChatGPT, you can now use. And so that's really exciting. But what's even more exciting about this particular conversation is I'm not talking about skills today. I am talking about 3 markdown files, basic text files that your ChatGPT and that your Claude need immediately. And the reason is because, now we spend a lot of time working in projects and we know AI has memory. And still there's those days, and I've been hearing people even talking about it this past week since Claude, went bananas and, keeps extending Fable 5, is that Claude has been acting even a little bit like sporadic and funky. And so the more we can do to always keep our AI on point and on focus and give it those guardrails, the better off we'll be. And so these 3 files that I'm going to talk about and then give you the frameworks for today are the basics of the basics. And these are going to work in any Claude project or ChatGPT project you use. They are going to work in, if you use my Solo Expert operating system, you are going to want to have these in your directors inside of your Claude or ChatGPT. If you are using Cowork or Code or the new Work over on ChatGPT, these are the files that are necessary to have in every single folder that your Claude and that your ChatGPT and any other large language model connects with. And there's going to be a few caveats that I'm going to go through as we go along here. Let me tell you what they are, and then I'm going to show you each one as we go. I am also at the end going to show you where you can go inside of my free community. If you're not in there, you're going to want to be in there, and I'll show you where to go so that you can get the outline frameworks that I've created for you so you don't have to make these MD files from scratch. Okay, so we're talking today specifically about not skills. This is even before skills. This is that foundational layer. Claude.md file, or if you're going to use it over on ChatGPT, I would call it, main.md or instructions.md. We're going to talk about your brand brief.md, and we're going to talk about your design.md and what it means to have this design system MD, which I think is so cool, especially as you start to explore different ways to build artifacts and web pages and vibe coded pages and sites and all those things. This design.md file is going to be your secret weapon. So first of all, the Claude.md. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So in case you didn't see my last training, it was all about Obsidian and Claude. And Obsidian is this notes tool that I use, and that it is really cool for helping you with MD files and looking at, what you've created and all that. And it's actually going to be really important when you build these 3 documents that we're going to walk through, because it's going to give you a super easy way to edit so that you don't have to edit in like a basic text file that looks just like, a big wall of text. So Claude.md, let's start with that. Now, Claude will always read the .md file when available before anything else. So if you have a project, you will want to put your Claude.md file in the project files. If you are working from a local computer and you have a file folder system, you will want to have the Claude.md file in every single one of those folders, okay? It's not enough to have it in the root folder. If you have a folder called My Claude folder, and then you have a folder in there called marketing and sales and whatever, you need to have these files in each folder. So that's just a matter of copying and pasting it. Now, it does take a little bit. If you update one, you want to go and you want to make sure that you update all the others and that you remove the old ones, right? So everything stays consistent and aligned. But in the big picture of things, that is a lot less time consuming than trying to figure out why your Claude or ChatGPT is not responding the way that you want, or pulling old information, or, talking about an offer or some sort of concept or angle that you were using last year, right? You need to keep these files updated. And in the long run, if you look at them every month and you update it and you recopy it, it's going to save you a bunch of time. So the Claude.md file is really cool because you'll see here that it references the other two files. So instead of having one gigantic Claude file that says everything about your brand and your designs and your tone and all that, you want to break those down into the different files and into these different MD files. So hence the reason we're going to have one called Brand Brief, because that's where all of your brand, marketing, tone, all that's going to go. We're going to have a doc called Design, because that's where all of your fonts and colors and this and that and the other goes. This is the layer that tells it, like, do this over here, do that, always review this. Now, there is some overlap here, which is okay, but you want to make sure that, let's say your brand brief gets, corrupted, or you forget to add it in, your Claude.md has enough. That said, and this is kind of like a well-known fact, is that the longer any file gets, the less able that your large language model is to use all of the content in it. That's why we want to break it down into these 3 file structure. And we want to tell the Claude file, hey, this is what they are, this is what they contain, and this is how you're going to use them. So this is a really small yet important piece of your Claude.md. If you already have a Claude.md file, great, make sure you add this. And then once you have your brand brief created and your design created, your design MD created, you can go back and add it. But you really want it to know that these 3 files work together. This is the operating layer. Now, you're going to see here, this is the version that I'm giving you. It has a brief overview of who you are. It has a brief overview of your audience, of your offers, of your tone, of your non-negotiables, the rules that it should follow, any key frameworks that you've developed. You can take this out if you want. And again, this is all customizable for you, right? I'm going to give you this document. You're going to open it up and you're going to edit it on your end. But if you don't have any key frameworks, or if you're just starting, or this isn't how you kind of run your business, you may not need to fill in each one of these. Any like high level designs. So like there is one color that I have that I want, not only do I want my design system to know it, I also want Claude to know it. So there's never any confusion. Okay. So there is some overlap at a high level, but these other 2 documents are going to go much deeper. Things that you want to avoid, behavior, your strategic priorities, and then how to complete this file. Now, you're going to probably create this one after you create the other 2. And then you can ask your Claude or your ChatGPT to fill this in based on the other 2. And depending on how you have your Claude or your ChatGPT structured and organized right now, you can always, even as we go into these other 2 documents, you can ask it to help you fill in the blanks for you. Okay. So sometimes people see something like this and they're like, ugh, this looks like a lot, I don't want to do it. And then you don't do it, but then you're missing out on something that's really foundational to how you create relevancy and speed and that consistency throughout. So it's important. And when you have these 3 files, like even in your projects and custom instructions inside of a project, you're going to say, remember to look at the Claude.md file, right? Because this is the document that you can use anytime, anywhere, and that you should use anytime, anywhere, because it's kind of like the basis. So that's Claude.md. There's a lot of different things also on YouTube where people talk about how to structure it and whatnot. If you like a different structure, great. Just make sure you have a Claude.md file. You're going to get my structure. You can always add to it, like I said, or, add or subtract based on what your specific goals are and what your specific business is. The second document I think is super, super important. It's your brandbrief.md file. And these are all going to be called like brand-brief.md, design.md, Claude.md, okay? Because when you are using an MD file, which is Markdown, it's like text, but it has, if I click on this, you're going to see here, it has these 2 hashtags. These hashtags represent the Markdown for a header 2, an H2. And so when you export it as MD, not only is it very, very easy for the large language model to read, the files are very small. And so you're not taking up a lot of space. So the brand brief document is cool because it goes so deep into like the ethos of your business. And it starts with, an overview of who you help, your core beliefs, your positioning. It goes into what your offer suite is. So you're going to want to fill all this stuff in. And if you already have a pseudo document somewhere that's kind of like this, but not quite, you may want to update it to make it more specific and robust. Robust doesn't mean adding a lot of filler in just for the hell of it. Robust means that it knows all of the pertinent information so it can do its best to respond at all times. Okay, so your offer suite. Do you have a lead magnet? Do you have a core signature offer? Do you have a premium offer? Do you do any seasonal or retired offers that maybe it should know about, but you don't need right now? Ideal client information. Core problems. This is where you really want to go deep. And by the way, if you have been in my world for any length of time or you are in the Solo Expert OS system, Scale Without Hiring, or you've taken one of my past systems and you have my AI marketing toolkit, this is the type of stuff that the Email Profit Framework and my Offer Buzz are going to help you do. So if you don't have my Email Profit Framework or my Offer Buzz, now's a really good time to get them. Let me know if you don't have them. When you're in my group, I'm happy to give you access for free to whichever one you want, because it's going to help you flesh all this out. And if you're like thinking, I really need to dial this in, or I know who it is, but I haven't gone deep enough. Like if you are one of those people that feels like AI never gives you a good enough response, it's probably time to go deeper into your ICA and your brand messaging information, because you haven't given it enough information to go deep enough for you. And so that's usually where the core problem starts, is you maybe give these things like 1 or 2 words, and then you wonder why your AI is, not doing you a solid. It's because you haven't given it enough information. Okay, so after ideal client, and this is going to be a robust section, right? This might be a couple paragraphs for each one of these. What are their core problems? What are their core, what are your core insights? What is the transformation? What do your clients get on the other side, right? What are they paying you the big bucks for? What is the result? This section is super important. What are your strong opinions? What are your contrarian angles? What do you stand for? What do you think is horrible about whatever your competitor does? Or what do you want to throw stones at? What do you want to demystify? All that kind of stuff. Voice and tone, any universal writing rules. So any formatting quirks. For instance, I'll give you an example. I always use a tilde, not a dash and not an M dash, right? And so everywhere I have it written, never use M dash, always use a tilde. And that's just one of my quirks. My other quirk is that I have a tendency to overuse the ellipses. And so those are the types of things that you want to put in here, as well as things that you don't. So you're going to get this whole framework that you're going to fill in. And you're going to use this, and it's free. I'm giving it to you, so don't sleep on it. If you have a document that is your testimonials, client stories, you can do a couple of different things here. You can refer to it and say, always look at the document called clienttestimonials.md, or you can put the ones that are the most important in here. Again, the longer this gets, and when I say long, I don't mean scrolling length. I'm talking about like characters and tokens that the LLM needs to read through and think about, right? So it's always good to say, always look in the folder or in the project docs for my, 2026 client testimonials.md to find the most recent. Any CTAs and links that you use frequently. So maybe you don't say enroll now. Maybe you say hop in and get started, right? Whatever it is, put that in here. If you have cold traffic destinations, this is where you can put URLs, warm traffic destination sales pages, links to your lead magnets if you didn't put that above. So when you ask Claude to write you an email, or you ask Claude to write you an email and move it over to your favorite email provider for you, you already want your links coded in for you. You don't want to have to go back and do all that little minutia stuff, right? We're trying to get out of the minutia. After CTAs and links, you want to make sure that you have your signature and sign off. And this is really important if you do a lot of email writing in Claude or ChatGPT, and you want to have it moved automatically to your favorite email service provider. So I use the Kit MCP quite a bit, and it's great. So I'm in my director of marketing inside Claude. It's got all the information. I write an email, and then it says, want me to create you a draft in Kit? And I'm like, yep. And then it does it, and it's moving on. It's got everything. and it knows everything already. And then as far as brand colors and design, you can see here that it says always refer to the design.md in your project files or in your folder files. Just make sure that you always have that document if you're going to keep that line. If you're not going to keep that line and you're not going to do a design system file, then you would want to put in some of your main elements in here. But this is not complicated stuff, friends. And it's not meant to be complicated. It's meant to be super simple and easy and makes your life so much easier at that foundational level. One of the things that I want to say is these MD files, and you may be thinking like, this is super basic. And it is. It's supposed to be super basic. And the reason it's supposed to be super basic is because when you start to layer on skills and you start to go into Cowork, or you decide that you're going down the code path and you are doing stuff and you're trying to, build a house, but you don't have this foundational stuff, this is where you find yourself feeling like you're constantly saying the same things over and over and over. So just do this once, and then you don't have to find that URL again. You don't have to be thinking like, why does it keep telling me that why does it keep using that ugly green color when this is my green color, right? So you do these things and then it helps everything else. And if you've started using skills, which I'm sure many of you have, this is great to have these because skills layer on top of this, right? And so even in your skills, if you get a skill from somebody, you may even want to update the skill and say something like, always make sure you read my brandbrief.md before you go to town, right? You may even decide, quite frankly, that you want to include your brand brief and your design system documents in your own skills. Now, obviously, if you are creating skills and sharing them out with others, you wouldn't want to do that, but you can always unzip a skill, add these documents to the reference folder inside a skill, update the instructions to let the skill instructions know that it now has the files to use, and then you rezip it and then you upload it. The other way to do that, if that sounded too complicated, is you literally go into Claude and you say, hey, that email repurposing skill that I have? Can you please add to the reference files my brandbrief.md and my design.md? And it will update the skill for you and repackage it and then ask you, do you want to update the skill? So that's another way to do it. And I'm going to hop over to my Claude in a minute and show you like all places that I use these 3 documents. Let's move on to design system outline. I recently became obsessed with having a design.md doc, and people call them on YouTube design systems. What's your design system? And that's just a fancy word for, do you have a document that has all of your design and color and font and weight and all that preferences that Claude can read or that ChatGPT can read? And so I've created the design system outline for you. You can just call it design.md. And what it has is, and I'll tell you, like for years, I've had this sticky on my desk, and you can see here that it's colors and hex values for the colors. So basically it says like dragonfly, which is my main green, and then it has the hex value. Now, if you're like me, you've probably memorized many of the colors, hex values that you use over and over, but it sure is nice to be able to say, use my main green, and it knows it's dragonfly, and it knows what I call it and what the hex value is. So this may be the funnest document that you create because you are going to, and it's surely going to be very valuable. First, you're going to tell it like, what do you want the font to be for your H1s, H2s, and H3s? And then what is your body text? What is your bold body text? And what is your button color and font? And then you go into, and you can see here, it has pound signs. It's waiting for a 6-digit hex value. And usually that looks like, I'll just show you what that looks like. 000000 is black. But when you can say, hey, my primary brand color for my main headline, for the background colors that I want, et cetera, and feel free to add more, you're going to be able to vibe code pages so much quicker. And I don't know about you, but vibe coding for me is tedious. Like my ADHD, the patience that it takes, and the making an update and then waiting for it to reload and then making another one and then reloading, like to me, that is like brutal. So the more I can give it up front, when I'm like starting a vibe coding project, for instance, if I'm making a document and I can say as in the planning process, here's my design.md, here's my brand brief, here's, my instructions. It already has the foundation. It's not going to come out with purple and black if my colors are green and yellow. So all of these are really important. And one of the things you can do to get started is if you use Canva, let me just see here. I'm going to go into Canva really quick. You can always do this little number if you get bored and you don't want to type it all. When you go into your brand, if you have your colors set, you can always just make a screenshot of this and say, type these up for me. These are my brand colors. And then from there, you'll get the list. So you don't have to do the manual work. Then you can say Dragonfly is my main color. Cloud Dancer is the main background color. If you already have all the information, you just need to make it easy on yourself to coordinate it and organize it into this document for yourself. Buttons and the little things make a huge difference when you do them once in here, because I'll tell you, like border radius, like you may want completely round buttons. I like square angles. I like a radius equals 0. I do not want any roundness on the corners. I may want a thin black 1-point border on all of my buttons. The background color of my buttons are always yellow. The font is always black. Like those types of things matter, right? So you may have like a main button and then a sub button color. Take an hour and fill this in and you will be thrilled with yourself. I promise you. Any layouts and structures that you find you do a lot, I will say, don't kill yourself in this though. Like do the most important parts. You can always remove this and then come back to it and fill it in later. The nice thing about these documents are that as you find that you're going down your windy AI journey road, we pick up different things that we want to test and we want to try. And maybe you're not vibe coding web pages right now, but maybe that's a goal for Q4, right? At that point, you may decide like, oh, I hate when it always does this. I should update my design.md file so it knows that I always want it to look like XYZ. Section pattern library. If you do backgrounds, if you have documents or images that you always want it to use, especially if you're vibe coding and you're not in like a platform that has all of your images uploaded, it's a great idea to have a folder where it can source the URLs and pull all of the images. And I'll show you what mine looks like in just a minute. And then at the end, any CSS conventions, and this is optional. So those are the 3 things your Claude or ChatGPT needs. And again, now that we have skills in ChatGPT, I think I'm going to see a lot more people building their AI director suites and their solo expert OSs over in ChatGPT, because you can use the same skills in both places, right? Just like you can use these documents in both places. And you can also use these in any other large language model that you're using. The .md is the universal language, and it's super light. It's very lightweight, and large language models could read it all day long. Okay, you are going to get these 3 documents, and I'm going to show you where you're going to be able to find these. If you are in my paid program already, I've actually created skills for you for the brand brief builder, and I'm creating one for the design system builder. And these documents live over in the private group also, but you're going to get the skills if you're in my paid program. If you are not in my paid program, you're going to want to go into my free group, the Solo Expert Advantage. And when you go into the classroom under free trainings, you are going to find under live trainings 3 things your Claude or ChatGPT needs. And you can download these documents. So that's where you're going to find these. Let me show you where I use these documents, because I use the heck out of them and I use them all over the place. So when I go into Claude, you're going to see first and foremost that I have my director library over here. And while each one of these directors and every one of my projects has instructions, I have recently updated my instructions so that it always says, be sure to read the Claude brand brief and design.mds. So these documents go into every project that I use. I also, just so you know, keep them handy, because sometimes I'm, on another system or I just need it and I want to be able to just connect it or upload it really quick, right? So you add these to every project. That's number 1. Number 2 is they are also going to live in your folders locally that you connect to Claude Cowork, or you connect to ChatGPT Work, or you connect to Claude Code, okay? So you can see here, and this is where, things get a little bit like you have to duplicate yourself, but again, it's worth it. This is my main root directory, Claude plus Obsidian. This is the one I have connected to my personal Obsidian. And you can see here I have the documents, brand brief, Claude design. When I go into my marketing folder, I also have those documents, because if I have a folder in Claude Cowork connected directly to my O1 marketing, it's not going to see these at the root level. It only sees what's in that particular folder that you connect to Claude Cowork. And this is important because now, we've got this really cool way. You can see that I can be in a project and use Cowork or Chat. So it's important, and it's all connected now, that they're bringing Cowork and Chat together. Okay, let me pause and see if anybody has any questions there. Where do we get the link to the file outlines? Again, if you are in my community called the Solo Expert Advantage free, in my classroom, under free trainings, they're going to live right here. The files are already here. What happens if you decide that you want to upgrade to the Solo Expert operating system? Fabulous. I have a private community for that. And the Solo Expert OS is really a way for solo experts, online coaches, people who want to earn big but stay small. You don't have a big desire to grow a big team, or to, have this gigantic Amy Porterfield style empire or whatever. If you thrive and want nimble and want uncomplicated, the Solo Expert OS was built for you. And it's built on the premise of the AI Director Suite, number one. And that's what I built first, actually, is this whole beautiful AI Director Suite that gives you all of the directors, from Director of Marketing, Director of Sales, Client Success, Chief of Staff, Curriculum, Ops, and Money. And what's been happening over time since I launched this is, everybody got hot and heavy over skills. So I have now built out a skills library that I'm continuing to add to. Now, this skills library is a little bit different because I am making these skills specifically to enhance the outputs of your AI directors. So when you go into the sales skills and you want to invoke, or you want to use the sales call preparer skill, for instance, I built it knowing that you're going to use it inside of your director of sales. Okay. So these are very specific skills. You can get dime a dozen skills. You can get skill-free, generic, junky, shitty skills anywhere right now. They're like prompt packs, right? But really, my goal when I create a skill is, how is it going to power up and enhance your AI director that it's supposed to work with? So just yesterday, I actually added in the ad brief creator and the yapping content creator, because, there's this big yap challenge that's going around. So I built a skill that will help you create yaps inside of your director of marketing. And the reason it works is because when you follow my system, your director of marketing is trained with all of your information, with the instructions. So you want to use and invoke these skills inside of your director. And then the other thing I do for the people that are in the Solo Expert OS, I did things like I built a skill specifically for the brand brief builder. Some of the other things that are in this Solo Expert OS that aren't anywhere else are, originally I built my AI marketing toolkit, which includes the email profit framework, which is a standalone GPT, OfferBuzz, Brand Voice Architect, and Hooks Genius, and then the IG Carousel Creator. And these are custom GPTs, but so many of my clients have moved into Claude and want skills that now inside the program, I actually have a skill that I've created for each one of these as well. And so over time, the system continues to evolve. When I think about the fundamentals of using AI, I'm thinking about, what does that look like at the foundational layer, right? And whether you're doing email marketing, whether you're doing your, hosting webinars or masterclasses, whether you're a coach for B2C or B2B, foundationally, you need that layer that helps you run your business. And that's what the Solo Expert OS is. Everything else can be built on top of it. I also fundamentally built it to work inside of Chat and not Cowork, because Cowork is really great at executing and doing tasks, but I still feel like when you build your directors properly in chat, they're your strategic partners and implementation partners, and they're the ones that are going to help you drive your business forward and do a lot of the work. So you don't need to go into Cowork, for instance, to move an email into your email marketing platform. You can do that right in chat. You just need to know how to do it, right? It doesn't matter what strategy you do, what strategy you choose for your businesses, as far as sales, as far as marketing, as far as client delivery, whether you're doing group programs, whether you're doing one-to-one coaching, whether you have a service-based business model or done for you still need that foundational layer. Otherwise, you're going to be like, things are going to be falling into the sand that you put the walls up on, and you didn't have that strong foundation. And so that's really the goal of the operating system, is to give you that foundational layer to build on. Now, it's a happy coincidence that Claude now has brought together chat and Cowork, because now you don't need separate projects for each of those platforms, which is great, because before you were like going into Cowork and then you needed to make sure that you had all your files in there and you had a separate project, and then you switch back to chat and you had, chats over here and conversations over there. And now with the way that they're merging them together and bringing them to web and mobile, I think that that's going to even extend the power of the solo expert operating system, which just happens to be great, because God knows when you're in AI, you tend to build a lot of things and then like the next day they become obsolete. And my system just got more powerful, which is fabulous. And also these skills that I've created for the Solo Expert OS and for the directors to power them up, to give them superpowers. I have clients that still work with just ChatGPT, like they haven't jumped to Claude, or they just didn't love Claude, or ChatGPT is still pretty amazing. And the ability now to have skills and be able to use them on both platforms is truly creating this like platform agnostic system. And the Solo Expert OS is a platform agnostic system. So it worked out really good. It's $397 if you pay in full. I have a special like 4-day deal, and then it goes up to $497. So the system is amazing. You get all of the things. Again, Solo Expert OS, it's to give you that underlying thing. Money's great, but money doesn't always buy us time, and hiring people certainly doesn't always buy us time, and it also costs a ton of money. So in any case, if you have any questions, let me know. In the meantime, you can go over to school.com/AI powered business, all one word. That is the free group. Okay, friends, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.